What's up, everyone? It's Brian from Exact IT Solutions. I have here Andre from Arc Solvers IT down in Miami. Good afternoon, Andre. How are you today?
I'm well, Brian. How you doing?
I'm doing awesome. Today is April 15th. It's tax day, but not really, because I don't think taxes are really due today, right?
Right, it got extended. Yep.
So it's not tax. It's tax day, but not really here in the United States. April 15th, 2021. How's things going at Arc Solvers down there in Miami?
Things are busy, man. I've been working with you and our mastermind group about 10xing our business.
True. This is true.
Yes.
We talk about a lot of business planning. I think if people listen to this podcast, they know that you and I absolutely work together on our business through this mastermind group that we're a part of together. And that's important, right? That's important for every business to do, every business owner to do. We've been doing this for a while, right? Probably over 6 months at this point, I would say.
Yeah.
So, and I know you, unlike me, you have one of your employees in the group with us as well.
Mm-hmm.
What is it? What has it done for your business? Maybe in terms of things that I don't see, or maybe for your operations manager who's in there with us. Like, what has it done for her from her perspective, or what has it done for you or the two of you? Talk to me about that, so maybe the audience can understand like why taking a step back every quarter is important, and planning and putting evaluating and planning, and then putting a plan of action for the coming quarter in place.
Yeah, so we're talking about this week. We probably spent a full 2 business days when you count it. It was within 3 days, but it was about 16 hours of just like zoning out and just focusing on the business, and just trying to see what can we improve on, because my COO Yoli, she went to school for a project manager. She didn't go to school to run a business,
Right.
So making sure that the migration happened correctly, no problem, she can do that. But then running the business, managing people, and managing and helping them to improve themselves. That's kind of, I would say, what has been the biggest takeaway we've gotten, because although we're improving ourselves now, because as I think you even mentioned, that a technician sometimes just wants to be a technician. They don't want to okay, I don't want to be a supervisor. I don't want to do this or that. I just want to do what I'm good at. But now, how do you keep them in that realm where they're comfortable, but at the same time make them a little uncomfortable so that they can even go 2x or 3x of their capabilities? So that's kind of been one of the biggest takeaways is managing our staff and helping them push as far as like continuing education, going against our core values and making sure that they're following that. So it's just so much great information.
Yeah, I mean, you can't really push somebody to want to be better if they don't want to be better, right?
Yeah.
So it's always tricky, but I think that goes back to culture, right? What kind of culture are you creating, and what kind of people are you hiring, and are you hiring around your culture? So if your culture is growth, and your culture is having people who want to work in an environment where, or in a company that wants to grow fast, that doesn't happen by accident, right? That you need the right people in place with the right attitude and the right skill sets in order to grow. And there comes a point in time where there's that old saying where, what got you here won't get you there.
Yeah.
I've heard that with, people say that to me with employees, like, people that got you here aren't going to get you there, right? So That's something businesses have to evaluate all the time is, do I have the right people and do I have the right butts in the right seats so I can achieve the goals that I've set out for myself and the company. So it's interesting. It's interesting how the different strategies you can use to kind of make that happen. Our group shares a lot of different ideas around how we make that happen, and or how somebody's made it happen in their company. And then maybe you take a piece of that and adapt it to your company or something like that. So the cool thing is about our group is, and what I really like about the mastermind group is everybody's committed. And I think that that's what makes a mastermind group work, right? And we actually had some people in the group who are no longer there that weren't committed, right? They kind of took themselves out. But everybody we have in there is committed to achieving what they've set out to achieve. And we're all at different levels in our business. We're not at the same level, and we all want different things. But getting in there, stating a goal or stating a problem, and identifying what we need to do to fix it or what we need to do to achieve the goal, and putting the action items or putting the activities or behaviors in place so that we know throughout the quarter, when we meet, every other week to get together and report on our progress, we know exactly what activity we're looking for from each individual, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it makes those calls go a lot smoother, a lot easier. Hey, did you do X, Y, and Z? And I don't look at this any different than if you wanted to lose weight or get in better shape. If you have a fitness coach or a personal trainer, if you're not meeting with them every day and they're not giving you a plan and you're just checking in with them, they're going to ask you, like, did you do the push-ups? Did you do the reps? Did you ride, the bike or run on the treadmill? How long did you do it for? How many times did you do it? And that's really what we're doing, right? We're how many times did you make phone calls? How many times did you do this? How many times did you do that? And we're holding each other accountable to that. So if you can do that on your own, you're a rare individual. I can do it on my own to an extent. But when you're talking about people pushing you out of your comfort zone, and you're talking about people who will hold you accountable and make you think bigger, that's what these groups do for you, because you will limit yourself into what you believe you can do. The group that we're in, at least, we just all pushed each other to do more. Like, we stated our goals and then we just basically said, okay, now put another zero behind that number.
Mm-hmm.
Right? That's essentially what we did.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So, so like, if I had a goal of $5 million, I may or may not, but if I had a goal of revenue of $5 million, we basically said this week it's 50 million, right? So, that's kind of what we were doing, and we were doing that in all different aspects of the business, not just growth and sales. So, it was a good 3 days, well spent, and an awesome time. So I really enjoyed it, and I encourage anybody listening to this who runs a business or is a manager, wants to do more, wants to do better, go find yourself an accountability group. In today's day and age with the internet, they're not too hard to find. You have groups like EO, you have Vistage, you have all these other, like, not industry specific groups where you can find this kind of stuff. And then you also will find industry specific things that, in your industry, you will find industry specific organizations that facilitate these kinds of groups. So I encourage you to go out and find one. So that's cool. So thanks, Andre. And then right now I want to jump into our topic of the day, which is a conversation that Andre and I were having about, I guess the shift I'm about to kind of propose is more of a mind shift than anything else, because at the end of the day, you should be doing all this stuff. But I think people think the way that we term things, I think it gives people either a false sense of security or it gives them the wrong impression of what needs to be done. And I think I mentioned it on the call on our podcast last week, and I'll bring it up again. But like, there's people out there that think cybersecurity is just like signing up for services like KnowBe4, right? And they sign up for KnowBe4 and they implement phishing and awareness training in their company, and now they do cybersecurity, right? And as I mentioned in the podcast last week, that's only a small piece of it, right? That's only a small piece of what needs to be done. So along those same lines, we do this thing, or we have this thing called cybersecurity, right? And I think if you really don't know what's involved in cybersecurity, you tend to think that cybersecurity is like this wall or this impenetrable defense that somebody can put up that protects you from all this bad stuff that's happening. And when you're breached or you have a hack or something goes wrong, you look at that as a failure of your cybersecurity, of your defenses. And Andre and I are here today to give you a different perspective on how you should look at this as a business owner. And what we're going to talk about today is something called cyber resilience. And what cyber resilience is your ability to overcome something or an event that happens to you as a result of a cyber attack or a breach. That could be like your employee stole data or your employee deleted something, right? So it's your ability to get back to business, normal business, as quickly as possible. That is the concept here. That is what we're kind of proposing and laying out. And this isn't a concept that's unique to Andre and I. We just didn't sit in the green room and invent this term. It's been a term that a lot of companies, cybersecurity companies and thought leaders in our space have been talking about for several months now. And really, it's an effort by the industry to change the perspective on cybersecurity as a whole, right? Because as I said, too many people think it's a wall that you can put up that blocks everything and you won't get hacked. And when you do get hacked, it's seen as a failure of your cybersecurity. When the reality of it is you will get hacked. You will have some kind of issue that you're going to have to deal with at some point in the future. What's your company's ability to get back to business quickly? And that's what we're talking about here. That's what businesses need to shift their mindset to. And why would I even bring this up? In your opinion, why is this important?
Yeah. So, and I think the key word you said is you will get hacked. Right. And I'm sure some owners would be like, wait, what do you mean? Am I not paying right now so that I won't get hacked? Like, isn't my IT company doing everything they can to make sure that I'm not going to be on the news and, we're not going to have problems? And Brian and I would both say it's like just said, it's not a matter of if, it's when. I mean, look at the billions that all of these companies do spend on protecting their systems. The government may, spend so much money, ASUS, Microsoft, and then something still happens. So you not only plan to put a fortress around your network and your computers, but you have to look. It could be a breach from the inside, and if something happens, what is that plan? Do you have that plan in place so that you're covered in all aspects and not just laser focus on securing the perimeter and then not thinking about, okay, let's just say that 1% chance that we did get hacked, what happens then? What is the plan after that?
Right. So this is important because a lot of business owners, and I'm going to go through some examples here as to why this is important, right? So why companies need to consider um, the this as how they think about cybersecurity, right? Because we already talked about the fact that businesses look at this as like, a bubble or a wall that you can put up, and I just want to go into like some of these companies and some of these schools and municipal governments. Like, let's just go through the sheer number of attacks and how they're happening, right? So there's, I'm going to share my screen here, but let me pull this up real quick. Share screen, get this up on there. Man, I can't find the right one. Oh, that's why. I got it. Okay. So we got this one here, right? New Jersey schools, right? There's two school districts in New Jersey right now that are dealing with cyber attacks. Those are Hillsborough schools, and there's another one. But I believe they're in like Somerset County, Bernards and Hillsborough schools, right? And this is in my backyard, and I think a couple weeks ago we just talked about your backyard, right, Broward County.
Yep.
And like, this is what we're talking about here. Like, everybody's getting attacked, right? And we're going to go through a bunch of them today. But these are schools that are getting attacked, right? And they're done, right? The cybersecurity of these schools has been breached, right? So now they have to be cyber resilient, right? They have to get back up and running, and that's what cyber resiliency is. And there are a plethora of things that you need to look at and consider in order to become cyber resilient. There's a plethora of things you need to do to just be secure, right? But there's a ton of things that you need to do to make sure that you can get back up and running, right? KnowBe4 is not going to help you get back up and running, right? KnowBe4 will train you on what to look for, right? And they'll build that awareness. But they're not going to get you back up and running if you have a cyber attack. And the other thing too is like KnowBe4 is not going to prevent a cyber attack. They're going to educate you on what you need to look for, what you need to be aware of, so you don't get attacked, right? And if we look at, this stuff right here, right? So how does this impact me? Well, in the Dutch, in the Netherlands, you can't buy cheese right now.
Wow.
There's no cheese in the supermarkets because devices at this baker's network basically encrypted their systems, which disrupted food transportation and fulfillment operations. So now they have this huge cheese shortage, right? So this stuff is like getting more and more important, just to cut it down to that. I mean, this stuff is important because now your food supply is being affected, right? You can't buy cheese in the Netherlands, and this can happen in the United States too, probably more regionally, but this can absolutely happen in the United States, where a cyber attack could go down. If one of these big food chains, like, I don't know, ShopRite's big here, Publix is big down there, right?
Right.
If one of those gets attacked, you don't think that's going to affect the food supply in Florida or New Jersey?
Absolutely. If you recall, even when COVID was just happening, and the factories of Tyson, I believe, the chicken, and there became a chicken shortage because the main factory closed. So yeah, just imagine that one building gets hit.
Or just the corporate offices or the transportation offices of Publix or ShopRites, or up here we have Acme or Aldi, that's a big one.
Mm-hmm.
This could be serious. Now what we're talking about here with cyber resilience is, okay, they broke your system. Now you can't operate. Now how quickly can you get back up and running? Because if you're cyber resilient, and you really work at it and test it and do it the right way, the way that we would recommend it would be done, you probably wouldn't have a cheese shortage in the Netherlands right now.
Right.
Like that's what we're trying to prove to people, and the point we're trying to make today is the fact that is the fact that we have these firms that go down for weeks, and then they can't operate and they can't do things, and then one time it could be cheese, another time it could be milk, it could be eggs, it could be whatever, and then this is all disrupted and it affects people's lives. It's going to affect this company, obviously, from being able to do business and generate revenue. But it also does a lot of other things too, like, possibly make a geographic area not be able to have food or enough food. And then we jump into, casinos getting hit out in Tasmania, which is off the coast of Australia, right? They got hit with ransomware on April 3rd. And here we are 10 days later, and they're down. They closed the venues. They're not doing business, right? So they affected booking systems at Rest Point Country Club venues cited in Sandy Bay, and I'm not even going to try to pronounce that. And it's just another obvious cyber attack that people went through and can't get back up from or recover from quickly, right? I don't have it up. I don't know what happened to it, but the Houston Rockets got hacked today.
Yeah.
Right? The basketball team. They are under a ransomware attack. Now they're claiming it didn't affect major systems. It's probably why I didn't keep it as an article to talk about. But like, this could affect whether or not the Houston Rockets could play if it got that bad. Now they're saying it won't affect operations. We'll see, right? Because last time I checked, they need computers and they need handheld devices to scan tickets to let people in, right? They don't tear the ticket like back in the day anymore, right?
Right.
So hopefully that's not the case, but you're talking about just like COVID interrupted professional sports games. Don't think that in the future we're not going to have professional sports games canceled because some organization is under a cyber attack. We're just trying to warn people that like your business is going to be impacted by this if you're not doing this seriously. Like, you're not going to be able to, sell homes, rent buildings, sell commercial real estate. You're not going to be able to conduct these transactions if your computers are locked up, right? So Capcom, I talked about this ransomware on my YouTube channel when it happened. Hackers gained access via vulnerable VPN, right? So again, cybersecurity defense broken, VPN sucked, didn't work well, hackers got in, Capcom suffered a major outage. They were down for weeks, and that's what we're talking about here, is like building that cyber resilience so you can get back up quickly and you don't have to wait for weeks or months to get back to business. Everybody needs to start having the mindset that they need to get back up and running within a short period of time. I have conversations with CEOs all the time. I don't know if you do, Andre, but I ask that question. How long can you be down? And I'll literally get CEOs who look me in the face and go, oh, we could probably be down for like 2 to 3 weeks.
Right. Yeah, right.
Well, let's unplug everything and let's see how that goes.
Right. Exactly. That's exactly.
Right? Because like, a sense of me, because I talk to a lot of CEOs and I've sold a lot of cybersecurity over the years, part of me thinks that that's them just looking at me as a salesperson or somebody who's trying to sell them something and being like, well, if I tell them I can't be down for more than 3 days, and I'm probably going to have to pay this guy more money, so let me.
Right.
Or they're just really that clueless and they think that their business will be fine for 14 to 21 days of no activity, and they'll just be able to pick things back up after 21 days of not having access to anything, not being able to get email. When you go through a cyber attack, it's not like it's not like you go on vacation, right? Where you come back and you have all this email in there for 2 weeks. Nobody's going to be able to email you. When they try to email you, the email is going to bounce.
Mm-hmm.
And that causes all kinds of issues on the internet when your email servers are not available and emails start bouncing, right? You get put on blacklists and you're on spam, and it takes a while to clean that up and get that back to normal. So there's a lot of different things that go into all of this when you need to consider everything you need to put into and plan for when it comes to getting back up and running after a cyber attack. And then you got this one, this cyber attacks target F5 BigIP critical vulnerabilities after firm releases update. Now, what I'm about to talk about, if you go and watch my YouTube channel, Exact IT Solutions YouTube channel, just type in XACT IT Solutions in YouTube, you'll find our channel. My video from either the 12th or 13th of April, I'm not exactly sure when it got posted, talks about an impending massive vulnerability that's going to be exposed in the next, probably, it's already starting to come out a little bit, but I happen to know somebody who is actually the hacker who figured this stuff out. And he is going to release something very soon that is going to blow people's minds. And it's really concerning because without going into too much detail, this is an unfixable vulnerability. And it's going to be millions of devices that are affected by these vulnerabilities. And it's nearly impossible to protect or remediate all the vulnerabilities in all of these devices. Some of them are just too important to take offline to, update the firmware or whatever. It would like literally break big pieces of the internet if you took them down. And this goes along with the same line of that. So, and it's the same thing as SolarWinds. It's the same thing as the Microsoft Exchange. Companies are putting out hardware and software that can be hacked, and there's nothing you can do, I can do, or the freaking best cybersecurity person in the world, or God can come back down to the earth and he can't do anything about it either, right? These things are broken. They're built and shipped broken, right? It's just that they don't know that it's broken when they sell it and ship it. Somebody figures it out along the way after it's been deployed, right? Think of this like recalls on cars, right? Recalls on cars, the underlying problem is usually always there from the time it rolls off the manufacturer's assembly line, right? The cars come off the assembly line and they have the problem, and then somebody discovers it while the cars are being used, and then the NTSB puts out a bulletin saying that this car or this manufacturer's set of cars has a problem. You need to do X, Y, and Z, take it into the dealer and get it fixed, blah, blah, blah. This is the same thing, right? Manufacturers are putting out stuff that has problems. A lot of times they put out patches or firmware updates to fix the problem that was discovered. But just think about it like this. If we're talking about a transportation system, right? Or just like really important vehicles, I can't think of anything to compare it to. But just think if we were all dependent on public transportation, like we needed to hop on a bus or a train to get from point A to point B, and there really was no thing as cars, right? So the way I'm thinking about this is pretty simple. If we need to use these cars to transact and do business every day. And if we take down these cars and we don't have this transportation, then people can't get to work and business doesn't happen. That's what's going on with these devices. If we take these devices offline, the internet's not going to happen, business isn't going to happen, things aren't going to happen when it comes to technology and internet. And I don't think the business world's ready for that. We're talking about stock market moving type activity. If we did stuff like this would affect the stock market big time.
Mm-hmm.
We're taking a lot of stuff offline, and that's what this group goes into, or this article goes in to say. And what we're trying to point out is that, you know, a lot of what goes into cybersecurity is stuff that's in your control, but there's a percentage of it that is not in your control. And you can't control whether or not you buy something from Microsoft, you put it in place, you secure it according to best practices, and you follow everything that you're supposed to do to keep that secure. But there's something in that software that you can't see, Microsoft can't see, that somebody discovers along the way, and then they're able to use it to exploit. Right. And that's kind of what we're talking about here, and why cybersecurity is important, but cyber resilience is more important, because you've got a plan to get back up and running. So I know I went a long time there. I want to get your input on this, Andre. Like, disagree with me? Am I?
No, I totally agree. But I think one of and I'm going to use that car analogy that you gave. Mm-hmm. Is it's kind of like when you're driving. Like, by now, everybody's seen accidents, right? Maybe once a month, you're driving down the road and you see a car accident. Sometimes it's just a fender bender, and sometimes, unfortunately, the ambulance has to wheel somebody out to go to the hospital. But I'm also wondering, with all of this, with everyone getting, not everyone, but with a lot of corporations and government entities getting hacked, it seems like now it's starting to going to be like a tone deaf, where it's going to be like, I know I'm driving a car and I know that's the possibility I'm going to get in an accident, and I'm going to deal with it. And I'm curious to know from the audience if that's how, or Brian, your opinion, is that how it's going to be with computers and technology, where people are going to kind of be like, until it happens to you, of course, you're not going to want it to happen, but are people starting to get tone deaf and not care as much, or just willing to take the risks because they need to transport? You see, I don't know if you see where I'm going at with this.
I mean, I hear you. I guess it's one of those things that I look at, and if it doesn't affect me personally, then why should I care?
Yes, and that's what I think. And yes, exactly.
And that's a lot of people's attitudes with a lot of things. Mm-hmm. But the purpose of this podcast, and the reason I do a Facebook channel and you do a Facebook channel, is to educate people and kind of sound the alarm that this was going to affect you one day, right? You're going to care when you walk into your local supermarkets and you can't buy food.
Yeah.
You're going to care when your Ring cameras and your smart devices and everything in your home gets hacked. But not only that, what I alluded to earlier about the information that I know is going to come out in the next couple months, it's going to be big. What if you invested all this money into smart home equipment, and then information comes out and somebody says, like, for instance, Ring. What if Ring came out and said, oh, these vulnerabilities were disclosed, and we've discovered that we can't update or we can't secure the existing products that we have out there.
Mm-hmm.
So we're end of lifing all of these products, and we're not going to support them anymore. And now you have to go out and invest more money into all new smart home products after you probably just spent thousands of dollars putting in doorbells and lights and everything else that you want smart in your home. Because I know, I mean, I have a pretty cool smart home myself, but I know people who aren't in the tech space who have way cooler shit than I do.
Right.
And that's like, I think about those people like, who invested in this stuff and are going to be told one day, you got to replace everything you have in your home because you're going to get hacked if you don't.
Right.
And that's kind of where I'm thinking about things. Like, you and I we're on the forefront of this. We understand how and who is impacted, but we also understand what's coming, and it's not going to get any better. It's got to get a lot worse before it gets better.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I mean, look at it this way, dude. If SolarWinds and our government being hacked the way that it got hacked, if people don't care from that, then it needs to go to the level that I'm talking about. Because quite frankly, when did the SolarWinds hack go down? November, December?
Right. Yeah.
We just today put sanctions on Russia, and they just came out today and actually officially named Cozy Bear, the people who are behind it. Right? So, it's that kind of thing. Like, Americans should be absolutely pissed off and demanding from their lawmakers that they get a better handle on cybersecurity, especially for the government, with all the information that the government holds about us. Each individual. The government knows when you were born. They know your social security number. They know your taxes. They know how much money you make. I mean, if you want to find information you want to do mass surveillance on an entire country, hack their government. Right?
Yep.
So, I mean, this is kind of where we're at, folks. I mean, we are at a point where cybersecurity is at the beginning. We're not at the end. It's only going to get worse. And let's just wrap up today and maybe talk about the next 5 minutes. What are some things that you like? If I were a business owner and I came to you and I said, "Hey, Andre, I just listened to your podcast, and I'm not so sure I'm cyber resilient." What would some things that you would recommend to a business owner that they could start doing, or that they should start looking at or questioning in their business to determine what level of cyber resiliency they have?
Well, just like a car, I'm going to use that car analogy again. You got to make sure you're wearing your seatbelt. You got to make sure your airbag sensors work. You got to make sure you have rental insurance, so that way when they're fixing your car, you can, kind of still be able to move around. So the same way in your business. Okay, so you were that small percent that got hacked. What plan did you have in place prior? Because you got to have a plan. We talked about that before in a few episodes ago, where you can't, your state of mind when you're in that situation is totally different from when it's kind of calm. You can do a boardroom meeting with all your executives and supervisors and just kind of come up with that plan. If Brian came and unplugged the power from these computers, how does it? How does accounting? What happens to them? Is there a backup plan? Can they just go work from home because there's another solution? Is there backup computers that's in place? Like I would say putting the plan in place as far as if something were to happen to this particular department, what then would happen? That would be one of my things I would mention.
Yep. Yeah, and one of the things I would recommend is you should have a incident response plan in place. We've talked about that before. So if you don't have an incident response plan, you're not cyber resilient, because that's pretty much like elementary. That's where it starts. The last thing you want to be trying to do is remember phone numbers, remember who to call, remember what to do when you're under stress, right? So have a plan, have it in somewhere where people can get to it. They're trained on it. They know where it is. And the other thing is, start doing fire drills. Typically when you're doing a cybersecurity plan, you're doing tabletop exercises first, where the stakeholders are sitting around the room and basically talking through, if they lost this system or if they lost that software, how would it impact them? What would they do as a backup? Like, for instance, in a hospital, or in a medical facility, if you have EMR, you're going to want to be able to have pen and paper and a process, and train your people on how to go back to pen and paper if the systems aren't available. Like, that's one way a medical practice could become cyber resilient, is taking down their EMR system and training their staff on how to continue to work when they don't have this system. Too many companies, or I should say companies, became too reliant on technology over the past 20 years. And in your practice, you probably bring people in and train them on the computer. You don't train them how to do it on pen and paper. Now, with cybersecurity, it's kind of brought that back, where we have to still consider training on paper, because we're so used to having these systems available all the time, because technology's gotten so good. When technology first came out, it wasn't that good, and hard drives would die and power supplies would go, and computers would be down for periods of time, and we got away from that. And then now here comes, cyber hackers, criminal hackers, and people who want to take things to another level and take you down. So building that plan, building a understanding, stakeholders understanding what's involved, go through that exercise of what would happen if these systems were down. And then you build towards actually doing an actual fire drill where you take the system offline and test your plan. Some people may hear this and go, that sounds crazy to me, but if you're a big company and you have to follow compliance, and you have a lot of liability that could potentially happen to you as a result of an event at your office, like a fire, I guarantee you that you have fire drills in your building so people know where to exit in the event of a fire, or a tornado or something like that. This is the same thing. You're testing out your plan and seeing where the problems are, and then you're doing lessons learned, and you're taking notes, and you're circling back to that plan every so often, and refining it and making it better as you go through it. For when the event does happen, you're still able to bring the cheese to the market, right? Because you've planned it out. You know what it looks like when you don't have these systems that you've become reliant on. And that's what resilience is. Resilience is being able to work past the technology and continue to work in other ways. So I hope this was informative to everyone. Andre, do you have any last thoughts or words you want to share with everybody before we wrap up?
Yeah, speaking of resilience, I was at a little small local cafe, and for whatever reason, it wasn't, I'm pretty sure it wasn't a cyber attack or anything like that, but their payment system stopped working. So I was so impressed to see that they actually had the old school machine where you put the credit card.
Wow. The imprint machine.
The imprint machine. But funny enough, I'm not gonna show. I was about to show you my credit card, but
credit card.
Yeah, but my credit card is one of the new ones, so it no longer has that.
Yep.
So he was kind of stooped, like, oh, okay, I'm just gonna have to write it down.
Yep.
But nevertheless, I was just impressed that the small local restaurant down the street didn't just close shop and say cash only, because a lot of times you'll see that. They'll just say, sorry, cash only, but they actually did think about, going back to resilience, they did think about, okay, if the internet stopped working or our credit card machine stopped working, we just go back to this old one. And now that this happened, now they're going to probably just figure out another way not, to take pictures of someone's credit card. So yeah, so no matter what your industry is, be it a natural disaster or cyber attack or just something stopped working and it can't get fixed for a few hours, a few days, you gotta think way more than just protecting the perimeter, but then continuing to operate your business no matter what.
Yeah, I'm going to state the obvious here, but I think it's important that I say it because what you just mentioned there is a great example, but it's much infinitely easier to maneuver a small boat than it is a large boat, right?
Yeah.
We need to keep that in mind, right? So that small shop was able to pivot quickly because they're small, right? Bigger companies don't have that luxury, right? And the bigger you are, the harder that ship is to turn.
Right.
And that's, something you need to keep in mind. So if you have, a larger company, the larger it is, the harder it's going to be to do this stuff, the longer it's going to take to get you to where you probably need to and want to be at this stage. But you got to start somewhere and you got to start now. So hopefully it's today after you hear this podcast, we urge you to take action. Get the right people around you that are smart to this stuff and get protected, but not only get protected, get resilient. Be able to run after an attack, after a hurricane, after a flood. It really doesn't matter what it is. They call it cyber resilience, but at the end of the day, it's just business resilience. Because it might not be a hacker that takes you down. It might be an employee. It might be a fire, a flood, a nuclear bomb. Who the hell knows what's coming in the future? But the idea here is that no matter what happens, your business can still deliver the goods to whoever you need to deliver them to. So that's it for me. Anything else?
No, that's all.
All right. Thanks, everyone. We'll come to you next week with more. And stay safe out there. Take care.
All right.